Greetings, I'm Adrian Scott, and I welcome you to Truth and Testimony, the broadcast. Time for the next episode in our series in the book of Genesis. And in this case, we will be covering Genesis chapter 5. And I'll tell you right now, there's not going to be a whole ton of commentary on this one. A couple of little points that I can bring up. But we all get to enjoy ourselves and have some entertainment as we watch Adrian muddle through the names, because this is a chapters almost exclusively on genealogy. So we get to muddle through all the names. And so begat so-and-so, who begat so-and-so. Anyways, we'll get into a couple of little points that I did have about it towards the end. So in the meantime, I think we just dive right in. And I'm going to do my best without dropping a whole bunch of these names. But I do seem to like to stutter on these things, so bear with me. So Genesis chapter 5. This is the book of the generations of Adam. In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God made he him. Male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam, in the day when they were created. And Adam lived 130 years, and begat a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. And the days of Adam, after he had begotten Seth, were 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters. And all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. And Seth lived 105 years, and begat Enos. And Seth lived, after he begat Enos, 807 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. And Enos lived 90 years, and begat Canaan. And Enos lived, after he begat Canaan, 815 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Enos were 905 years, and he died. And Canaan lived 70 years, and begat Mahalaleel. And Canaan lived, after he begat Mahalaleel, 840 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Canaan were 910 years, and he died. And Mahalaleel lived 65 years, and begat Jared. And Mahalaleel lived, after he begat Jared, 830 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Mahalaleel were 895 years, and he died. And Jared lived 162 years, and he begat Enoch. And Jared lived, after he begat Enoch, 800 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. And Enoch lived 65 years, and begat Methuselah. And Enoch walked with God, after he begat Methuselah, 300 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. And Methuselah lived 187 years, and begat Lamech. And Methuselah lived, after he begat Lamech, 782 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. And Lamech lived 182 years, and begat a son. And he called his name Noah, saying, This same shall comfort us concerning our work and toil of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord hath cursed. And Lamech lived, after he begat Noah, 595 years, and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. And Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Okay, so like I was saying, not necessarily a whole ton to get into. Let me just take that off. But there was a couple of little things. So first one, I'm going to kind of bounce around here a little bit. The first one I always thought was interesting is, so according to the records we have here and the best indications we have, the oldest living human being would be Methuselah at, 969 years? 969 years. So he was the closest to make it to 1,000 years old. Keeping in mind, of course, that the original intention was man was not going to die. This was the first effect of the sin of Adam and Eve. Okay, so then another point that I always thought was interesting. Now, where did that go? Oh, of course, it's the whole narrative of Enoch. This idea that it doesn't seem to indicate that he died a traditional death, that instead he was simply taken away at 300 and some odd years old, 360 and 5 years. That he walked with God and was not, for God took him. It's always very interesting. So there's lots of different schools of thought on end times prophecy and what different things represent and everything else. But one of the schools of thought has to do with the two witnesses in end times prophecy, that they would be standing in Jerusalem and eventually they would be struck down and killed, but after 3 days they would rise again. But for a period of time, I can't remember exactly what it was, that they were going to, prophesy and announce all these curses on the wicked. And it was not going to be, the wicked and unjust would be very, very unhappy with them. And they would have the ability to call down fire to deal with people that were trying to interfere with what they were doing on behalf of God. But anyways, the whole point of all of that is there's some different ideas on who those two witnesses could be. Could they just be two angels? Could they be, different figures? That the two witnesses could be Moses, who represents the law, and the Enoch. I know there's some that say it could be Moses, and I think Elijah. That was it. Moses and Elijah. That's another one. But it's one of those camps. So I'd say I'd probably be between one of those two, Moses and Elijah, or Moses and Enoch. And one of the reasons for Enoch was it's the first indication of anyone that really it states that he walked with God and made a separation, because God was in the garden with Adam and Eve. So, you would assume that they were walking. But to make that clear a statement, I'm pretty sure that Enoch is the first time that comes up. So the whole point is there's nothing random in the Bible. Everything is there for a reason. Even these genealogies, they are there for a reason. They serve a purpose. So that's why it's like I say, as difficult as some chapters and some sections of the Bible may be for one reason or another, they all should be read and understood, because they are all the inspired word of God and they all teach a lesson. They're all there for a reason. They're not filler. They're not fluke or an afterthought. It's there for a purpose. So when it mentions that Enoch walked with God and he was not because God took him away, that means something. So that's worth some investigation into what that means. And I can't go too deep in that one, I have to admit, but it is something that definitely stood out to me. Really, probably the last one I would mention is just kind of an interesting sort of a linguistic thing, which I didn't realize at the first, was actually, one other point I should make just before I get to that is this idea that there's a lot of debate sometimes on, who did so-and-so marry, to continue family lineage, to reproduce, right, to multiply and fill the earth. And it's like, I think one of the questions that was a strong one for that was, who was Cain's wife, right? If Cain is like the first child. But it mentions that after, in this, and I don't think it actually would go back before this, because we know it says that it only mentioned Adam having Seth. But before Seth, we know there was Cain and Abel. So if there was Cain and Abel, there was most likely other children as well. And it just clarifies that point through all of these guys, that they had this one child, and that's where the genealogy, that's where the bloodline kind of follows through. But it says for all of them that after that, and they had sons and daughters. So they had multiple children. So somewhere in there, Adam had a daughter, and that daughter was Cain's wife. It really couldn't have been any other way. And again, this goes back to something I'd mentioned in a previous video, where at that point, I would say the DNA and the genetics of everyone was pure enough still that you could interbreed at that level and not have complications. Nowadays, there's reasons why that's not really permitted. Some of it is kind of sociological and ethical and moral, but some of it is medical. And there's a literal genetic reason why not to do that nowadays. But back then, I would contend not a problem. So that last point I was going to make just has to do with, like I said, a bit of a linguistic thing, and that is the idea of Noah. So something I did not know was, I guess there's two versions of that name. And in Hebrew, if you say Noah, that is a female name. That is a woman's name. And it's just pronounced Noah. The male version is actually pronounced Noach with that guttural chet kind of sound, or I think it's a het, but it's got that guttural at the end of it, Noach, rather than Noah. Noah, because there's mention, I don't remember where it is. If I can find it, I'll put it up on screen here. But there's mention at one time of someone's daughter whose name was Noah. And it's just a little Hebrew thing, a difference between those two, Noah and Noach. And that guttural is always fun. I joked around to say, well, is it any wonder, why they are constantly doing that? Look at the sandy, look at the sandy area that they live in. They get all this dust and sand in their throat. So of course every word's going to end with just trying to clear their throats. Sorry, bad joke. But I will wrap it up there. It's a short video. There's not a lot to talk about in that one. Like I said, mostly a genealogy. I am impressed with myself. I was expecting to have issues with Mahalalel, but I think I said that all 9 times without stuttering on it. So yay for me. All right, well, we will leave it off, and I'll say that the next chapter, when we come back for chapter 6, that's when we're getting into some interesting stuff, when we start getting into fallen angels and giants, and there's some interesting stuff to talk about in that video. Probably going to be a little bit on the longer side for that one, because I got a lot of opinions on that chapter. Now, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed this, as dull as it was. Give it a thumbs up anyways, share it with others, and if you have not done so, please feel free to consider subscribing to the channel and hit the notification bell so that you are alerted anytime Ray or I, or Ray and I together, provide more videos and get more stuff uploaded, which we will be doing. So I wish blessings to all of you in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus our Lord. And I say shalom and bye for now.